power that we wield in doing the work that we do, of letting the public know about the different facets of the electoral process, and let us do what we do responsibly.
Thank you.
For me, yeah. Our expectation as regulators is of self-regulation first. We appeal to the media owners, the journalists, the senior journalists, the editors and publishers to institute robust internal mechanisms for fact-checking and ethical review. But we are also cognizant that the responsibility is not on the media. We are aware that there are other players.
I request you to stand here, you pose for the photo, as people give you a token of appreciation in a hand clap. And the microphone is back to you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I think we can repeat the hand clap because the moderator called for one to thank the panel. We can do one for the moderator and the entire panel. Yes, Innocent?
I'm hoping that the next panels will have some women, some females.
Obviously.
Please.
And we have also to appreciate that our organizer of the issue of ethical considerations covering elections. This aspect has been reshaped by technological disruptions. How do you keep ethics? How do you maintain standards in this technology age? That's what the next panel is going to be looking at: emerging technologies, responsible reporting, and elections in Uganda. And we heard from the
You don't want her to be closer to me? Good afternoon.
These are the things you keep like.
I know I am the person standing in the doorway before people go for their lunch, and I promise I won't be here longer. I want to cut it short and we move. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I need to welcome the panel as already introduced by Mr. Sulaiman Kakaire. The organizers couldn't have picked a better panel to discuss the issues at hand today. Emerging technologies, responsible reporting in Uganda. Once again, my name is Wilson Akichikaija from the Department of Journalism and Communication. Ladies and gentlemen, we are heading to yet another round of elections, the 7th under the 1995 Constitution, which, by the way, is 30 years old today, 8th of October. Now, as we head into the elections, January 12th, my attention is drawn to these headlines. I will run through them quickly. Government plots online surveillance for 2026 general elections. That's one of the headlines in the national papers. Another one is that government may block internet during 2026 elections. That's a minister speaking a few weeks ago. Another headline, crackdown coming. UCC teams up with tech giants to silence rogue content creators in Uganda. And the minister gives a quote, says, irresponsible broadcasting and online misconduct are to be punished. We have a challenge, ladies and gentlemen. That we have, as we head into elections, artificial intelligence, social media algorithms, and data-driven communication continue to transform the way we communicate, the way newsrooms operate, but also they pose challenges. On one hand, we have journalists being asked to uphold the truth and responsibility in a world where falsehood travels faster than fact. But we also have a question on policymakers and regulators to enable journalists play that role in an environment that is free of intimidation. We are as one of the fastest growing, one of the youngest populations, but also one that is heavily invested or rooted in the use of technology to produce content. And as our panelists, our keynote speaker said, accountability, the question of responsibility, the question of impartiality or professionalism are secondary to some of the people who produce content. And we have the panel here to answer these questions. Some of the questions: how can journalists report responsibly in a digital environment that is both empowering and fragile? How can policymakers protect digital freedom and spaces while maintaining accountability, rather than threaten our democracy? To help unpack these questions, we have a panel of what I would call eminent persons. We have Alan Chekwech, the managing editor at Nation Media Group. His extensive work in the newsroom, he's also done consumption habits for young people or young audiences in Uganda. Alan, you're most welcome.
Thank you.
We have Rachel Mugarura, Program Manager, Training and Online Resources at African Center for Media Excellence, ACME, an experienced editor, trainer, and media development professional. She's provided leadership in the development of ACME's core curricula for mid-career journalists on a range of subjects, including, for our interest this afternoon, data journalism, multimedia reporting, and covering energy, environment, and climate change. She's supported digital integration, mobile journalism, and Web 2.0 reporting modules in her training programs. Rachel has been a journalist, has been an editor, and has been a media development leader. So she's here because she's the right person to be here. You're welcome, Rachel. We have Dr. William Tayebwa. You've heard from the previous panel that he covered the 2001 elections, the second under the 1995 Constitution, which, by the way, was one of the most violent in the history of this country. Tayebwa is a senior lecturer in the Department of Journalism and Communication at Makerere University. He's also the director of Makerere University Press, but also has been a journalist, has been a trainer, and his interest is in peace journalism. Dr. Tayebwa, you're most welcome. Lastly, we have Irene Abalo, or Tor. If we talk about election violence, she has experiences to share. She actually has scars to show for her resilient reporting during elections. In 2021, she was one of the victims of election violence, and as you were told a few minutes ago, she only threw her clutches a few days ago. For 5 years, she's been struggling or living with the outcome of that violence. She's a journalist, a multimedia journalist with decades of experience, almost 20 years of experience as a journalist, as a media trainer, as a content producer, and a mentor, a journalism mentor. Irene, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I began by talking about or mentioning the headlines. Crackdown, crackdown, crackdown. Technology is being accused. Is on the spot or is on trial. Journalism or newsrooms are on trial. What does that make you feel? Alan.
Thank you first for having me on this panel. I know it's just not a media convention, but also an academic one because of the intellectual capacity and also the abilities that we have in the room. It will be, I think, a nice way to have a cross pollination of ideas from the field and also from the class. And to kick this discussion off, I think when you speak about media regulation, I think the media house I come from has been affected in so many ways. And if you begin from the example of Irene, and also the most recent one in the Kawempe by-election, I think we got the biggest beating. And it is not nice. If you want to hear from me, how do I feel about it? And it is good to regulate the media, but it's not good to gag it and also to harass it and beat it up. We found many ways of doing our work, but I think I want to limit myself at this point to your question, how do I feel? I feel horrible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. Dr. Taibo, in a minute.
Thank you very much. I occupy the space of academia. We are in a university, and I want to say that yes, Wilson, you are absolutely right. Technology is on trial, but journalism is on trial as well. But where I stand, I remain very hopeful, because from what I think we heard from Rachel, we are in a space where we train these wonderful people. We give them the opportunities. We show them what is out there in terms of the principles that Julie has talked about, but also what's available as far as the platforms, the spaces that are out there. And if I get an opportunity later, I will speak to, for example, the curricula we have here, to say that I feel hopeful that our curricula keeps evolving, but also we as a university keep bringing these conversations to make sure that we do not remain in an echo chamber. What's happening in the sector out there comes back to us, we reflect about it, so that it can...
To prepare for the elections. To prepare for the elections.
Thank you. Because we're in a journalism setting and facts are important, let me start by correcting the spelling of my name in the program. It's H-E-L, and my surname is Mugarra Mutana. Mugarra-Mutana. So, because we are right.
True.
So,
Mine too is poor. Yeah, mine too, Rachel, you're right.
we need our editor there to edit. Yeah. So as most headlines are, you know, often illuminate the most stark issues, the contrasts in society and things like that. And sometimes they can seem more alarmist than necessary. So on my end, the mindset I am going into this with, and with the journalists that I interact with, is to embrace what needs to be embraced, to pivot where they need to, like Dr. Tayebwa said, but importantly, to be cognizant of the fact of the digital divide that exists in this country, where majority of the electorate and the population still rely on these traditional media platforms. We're relying on these traditional media platforms to interpret some of these tech issues for them, to tell them what they mean and why they are important. So there is a process of rapid re-education of the media on reporting of these things, of science and technology, as it relates to how the population interacts with democratic issues.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Mugarura Mutana. Okay, Irene, for you, 2021, you had a different, it was a different feeling for you as a journalist, and you still have scars to show for it. And here we are, because 2021, for at least 100 hours, we had no internet. So again, it was technology in the dock, switched off, and newsroom operations affected by that. In the end, some doubts were cast on the process of the election, especially the declaration of results. Here we are, and we are receiving threats again of closure.
Thank you. I stand to be among the youngest in this group, and and I am really honored to be in this panel and also to interact with you all. What I can say is that when threats come, they are good because then they make you figure out how to prepare for them. You may not be 100%, you know there's something coming. So whether they pour cold water on you when you expect your body acts in a different way, at least you know there's something coming. So for me, I think, particularly in the digital space, newsrooms and leaders, management especially, are planning and have got to plan better. So you're not just training this journalist who's going to go to the field with a laptop, with a camera, and you're not just telling them how fast the story has to go in the digital space, but you're also telling them that should there be no internet, how do we engage? How do we continue and make the newsroom run? Because I will tell you, in 2021, I was in the field. So the newsroom didn't shut because there was no internet, no? Interestingly, Alan was also there, and we went on SMSs, we went on calling each other, possible to make sure that we have the newspaper out on the next day. We did everything possible to make sure that there was footage for TV to run content. Now, going forward, because now we have some sort of technology also advancing and coming up, we should be thinking, if this happens again, how are we going to have footage in the newsroom without the driver going at next speed to hand over the recording to the producer? And if Irene has to SMS the editor the story, I mean time and all that is going, how are we going to make this possible such that the hard copy paper will still be there on the street even when the internet is out, and people are able to access some sort of information? Not the complete picture, unfortunately, but something has got to be done. So I think there's a lot of preparation in that area. I am not privileged to reveal. But yes, newspapers and TV stations and radio are trying to sort of like figure out that there is this threat. How do we plan and prepare? And for me, again, what I had the other day, including telling us that we should forget about Facebook and then innovate other ways of communication, it just calls to the need for more investment in those areas. It doesn't have to be government investing sometimes. If you are in the business of news, about how your budgets will play around. If they don't play around, well, the day you close, it will also be a bad thing for the public. I think that's what I can say.
Thank you very much, Irene. Rachel talked about the need for re-education, re-educating journalists to prepare for what is coming, and you're talking about the need to plan and prepare. Alan, how are you preparing your team for the elections? How are you re-educating them to embrace the new, the emerging technologies and put them to good use?
Thank you. The
whole of July, we spent it across the country. I was with Irene here on the team, trying to teach them. First of all, train them in elections reporting, because some of us have, this should be the third election I've been in the newsroom. And we have experiences from the past, shutdown or whatever. Of course, there is a business continuity plan, and across the NMG platforms is aware of what we're going to do. And even as we know what we shall do that morning, because the past two elections we reported it without internet, and I don't think the public didn't get the information, and we shall still do that this time. And you know, when you talk about the emerging technologies, many of them are very embryonic. And if you look at TikTok, for example, I think in the past election, or even in the 2016 election, it was not one of the apps that were used largely in the elections reporting, at least popularly. Maybe you still had Facebook then, but this time Facebook should be in the backbenches, and then you have TikTok, you have X, and all other platforms. So we train our teams in such a manner that they even anticipate that if there is another technology tomorrow, they're able to adapt it, they're able to adopt it, they're able to report in the best way possible. And when we went into this training ahead of the next election, because the January election is just the climax of it, but this has been happening throughout the year and even the previous years. And it's not a guarantee that the technologies you're using today are the ones you use in January. They might have changed, and you must be dynamic. But we have done adequate training across the platforms. Mobile journalism, for example, which we gave Irene here to be in charge when we went across the country. And if you watch NTV, for example, we've brought in a lot more talent from upcountry who are doing live coverage, live reporting. And we've trained those from July up to now. And we've used the primaries denominations as litmus tests to pilot this project, so that by the time even we had the presidential nominations, they knew how to engage with these technologies, because they're not using the big cameras that you know. They can be able to use mobile phone. So we've done a lot of mobile journalism, and even other smaller gadgets to enable them relay the information live. So in terms of technology, and we are working with younger audiences. I'm wearing a suit, but I think I'm still young because suits have been left for Dr. Tayebwa here in the group. And we encourage, and maybe later on when we come to the next session, we'll speak about the young talent in the newsroom, for example. I don't think there is anyone who came to the newsroom when they're old. As panel say, for example, that we had maybe excellent journalists maybe 10 years ago or whatever, but there was a time when they were rookies. And when you come to a convention like this, you're speaking to young people who are aspiring to be inducted into the field, and also to be given the training. What you do is just, at Makerere, is just one part of the job. But when the talent here comes to the newsroom, we turn like teachers. We're an academy of sorts, because we teach a lot of skill that might not have been taught in school, but when you come to the field, things are quite different. And we do a lot of that teaching, and that does not end with the technology, it goes across the platforms. So how prepared are we? I think very well prepared. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Tayebwa, and in a way, Rachel. Thanks to technology, now you can get information through TikTok, through Facebook, through X, through Instagram, whatever, name them. But then that also has the other issue of the influencers. People who have a big following and they can influence the way people interpret information, receive information, interpret it, or think around different issues. The challenge is that we have the dual identity of a journalist influencer. On one hand, this is a journalist, and on the other, they are influencers. So walking that tightrope of remaining a professional journalist and acting professional and accountable, and then the other person who can throw anything anywhere, anytime. If you were to give a word to these people in this highly charged moment of elections, Dr. Taiwo, what would you tell them?
That's a tough one because from what my wonderful classmate said in the morning, Rachel, for those of you who don't know, we're in the same class. We are the class of 2000. Don't look at my gray hair and think I'm a very old man. Look at her, she's very young.
We actually hadn't seen that gray hair until you mentioned it.
But yes, so from where we stand, especially me as a trainer, I stand at that solid footing of the principles of the profession. And we cannot run away from that. And therefore, whether someone has those dual roles, my message to them is, as my other classmate said, that was Julius Muchunguzi, we were in the same class with Rachel. We are high flyers, you can see. So you remember what Julius said, his parting word was, you have a lot of power as a journalist. And to that is a lot of responsibility, and we cannot part away from that. So whether you are a journalist influencer, in my view, just know that you have a lot of power, and that power comes with responsibility, and that responsibility is those principles on which the profession stands. And Rachel summarized them very well for us, but these wonderful people in the room, and you could hear from their session in the morning, that they appreciate those principles of the profession. Tell that story as accurately as you possibly can. Let it be truthful. Make sure it is balanced, it is fair, and it is accurate, and you are accountable. So those are sacrosanct principles of our profession. We cannot run away from them. And wherever we go, Wilson, yes, I know we in academia have three responsibilities. One is to teach, obviously, but number two, do the research. But number three, which is very, very important, is engage with the community. And that engagement with the community is that engagement, but also go out there and we train these journalists. And that's where you meet a group of people who have not been to journalism school at all, never heard about these principles, but they are practicing journalism. Even then, whether they are DJs, whether they are social media influencers, all these, as long as they have that power to relay that message, that information, and relay it to the public, they must be of interest to us to make sure that we pass on that message of the principles of the profession. Because that is going to be the trust that Rachel was talking about in the morning. If that trust goes away, the only thing that can bring back that trust is if we can uphold those principles of the profession, and whether to the mainstream, but also the social media influencers and those wonderful people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taiwo. Rachel?
Could you kindly repeat the question? I'm not too sure I got an exact question.
Okay, we talked about the dual identity, the dual role of a journalist, a professional journalist, supposed to be professional, act professional and accountable, but then also using technology to be influencers. And that some of them, that dual role is becoming a problem. On one hand, they are expected to be professional, and on the other hand, they throw things online. there is a line between who the professional Kaija is and the professional influencer, Kaija the influencer is. And that seems to create a problem.
Is it a problem? Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know that I understand the question that well, but let me try to provide a thought. I'm not entirely sure in this space and in this time and in this short period in the lead up to the elections there is anything that we can change about journalists who moonlight as influencers. We all know the profession doesn't pay and you take opportunities that you need to. I will echo what Dr. Tayebwa said about remembering the principles of journalism and sticking to them. But if they don't, then what? If they don't, then what? What are the mechanisms for regulation, internally self-regulation within the media house and so on and so forth? Sometimes media houses are the ones fronting their own celebrity radio talk show hosts and so on and so forth and selling them as an add-on to bring more revenue to the media house as influencers. So I think, in my opinion, I think there is an opportunity for us to actually do some writing outside of the academic setting or conversations like this on what does this all mean for the public that consumes our information. Media don't cover media enough. Journalists don't cover journalists. But this is an important trend. If we go on and on and on saying, you know, media, the fourth estate and so on, where are we seeing these stories on our radio stations, newspapers, and television? Are we investigating how technology is being used to hamper or hinder or improve conversations, yeah? Are we talking about digital manipulation and how journalists perhaps may be drawn into that? Are we investigating the narratives of these influencers? What is it they're saying? What are they selling? How are they selling it? And for us to tell these stories, otherwise these conversations just sort of like remain amongst us and we bemoan, and we also know, even me, if I was approached to be an influencer, I'm not a practicing journalist, but if I'm not of influence enough, but there was a time I was a TV star during the period of the 2001 election that he mentioned. I'm not entirely sure I would say no. But because nobody is keeping an eye on me, apart from we ourselves, yeah? That's all I have to say on that.
Thank you very much, Irene. After here, I'll get back to the audience. I shouldn't be asking all the questions when most of the questions are out there. There is a dichotomy here. The regulators say they use words like recklessness, incitement, hatred, harassment, promoting conflict, hate speech. Those are the regulators saying that people are using technology, the media are using technology to do that. But then on the other side, you have the practitioners who are saying they are being harassed, there is censorship, that the regulators are hiding in misuse of technology to censor free speech, to narrow the spaces for expression, that there is intimidation, there is erosion of digital privacy. What would be your take on this? How do we bring these two extremes back to the center?
Okay, thank you for that question. Kaija, allow me to answer this as a digital safety trainer, not as a journalist. Because what is happening now, like Rachel said, we have social media policies in the newsrooms. Alan here will tell you at Nation Media Group, we have a social media policy that clearly guides, and HR tells you when you join the company. This is how our staff are expected to behave on social media. And I believe other media houses, if represented here, could also be having the same, or have some sort of like a guideline. How professionally as a journalist you conduct yourself. Because like Rachel said, there's also now a difficulty for this journalist to begin to balance between what I post based on my interest. You know, some people put a disclaimer and say, views on this platform are my own. Don't associate it with where I work. But it's very difficult. So, what do we do? I think it's very important to understand that social engineering of how content gets on the internet, now let me say social media, is big business. And in a situation where, like Rich again said, the profession is not providing the money that this person is looking at based on their brand, because branding again is a whole like new different area that people are using to benefit them differently away from journalism. You then need to understand that, okay, this one person is here telling you they are, I don't know where Okwalinga went by the way, telling you, for instance, they are Okwalinga. But this Okwalinga has 50% Okwalinga, 50% bot. Now, who are you going to control and who are you going to engage and interact with? Okwalinga or Okwalinga, the real person? And how do you balance this? Because if, say for instance, the use of hashtags, the use of tagging, the use of, you know, there is a recommendation algorithm such that when you open your phone, you're going to see a lot of things similar to what you have been searching or researching coming to you. It is because someone is sitting and their day job is to plan these things. And that is what some journalists are beginning to plug into. A whole big economy. And including in this campaign, I will tell you the pro-government are doing it, the anti-government are doing it. And the way they are doing it is so serious that there's a lot of investment in it in terms of money. So where does this journalist who sees the money on the table before them draw the line between the ethics, the profession, and earning the money? It takes a lot to stick to the to some of the principles that Doctor is talking about. And for me, I see it as short-term gain. For many, that is going to cost their profession. Because after the election and this social engineering has ended, and there are no more trending hashtags of, I don't want to mention any, because you are part of it, what next? Are you going to leave the profession? Or are you going to stay with the profession? Because now we have actually found ways of discovering that it is actually so and so seated somewhere here, distributing all these things. Because through social nets, so when you do data scraping on the internet, you're able to see where content originated from networks of the very many coming from this PC or phone. Yeah? We can trace and see these things. And if you trace and see it within your newsroom, by the way, where you sit, I don't know what Mr. Alan and Chekwecha and the team will do. That your very person in the newsroom, engineering team, creating this content and setting and sending them out on the internet. So I think it's a question of morals, integrity, mixed with, again, professionalism. A lot of things mixed in there, but it's now on the individual. How do you want to grow in this profession? Or are you just passing by? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for questions. I'm going to take maximum 4 questions for the panel. And I will request whoever is asking questions, be direct, ask the question, and be clear who you are posing the question or putting the question to.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaija. My name is Boribo Moses Tumuhaire, a student. My question is directed to Madam Irene. You mentioned AI and data analytics being used in election processes. What safeguards should Uganda adopt to prevent algorithm bias and manipulation? Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Yes, Bob.
Please stand. Respect the audience.
Yeah, the president stopped you from covering his events. We want to know, like, okay, personally, I want to know, like, did they give you like reasons as to why you shouldn't? And if they did, you can kindly share if it's okay. Another reason is like you still manage to find like a segment in your news where you talk about him and where he is. Like, aren't you supposed to, like, if someone tells you don't do this, like, you give up on him, like, you focus on those who love you. Okay, thank you.
Hello. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My name is Maureen Agena, and I am a PhD student here at Makerere, but I'm also a communication manager with the African Internet Point Association, abbreviated as AFIX, that looks at all these issues of bandwidth, data centers, and all that. And I have a question for Rachel, but first I want to recommend her and her team at ACME for the annual journalism awards that you give to journalists around the country. I think it's something important that you recognize them in the way that you do. And that not only encourages them, but holds them accountable because it's very public. And my question to you is, based on the nationwide that you conduct as ACME for journalists, for all these years, what has been that one challenge faced by journalists, especially in this digital age, especially the journalists upcountry? And then to Dr. Tayewa, it's not a question, it's just a call to action for your department to encourage alumni who have excelled in journalism. There are very many out who are doing amazing things, and in all aspects of journalism, videography, photography, broadcast, to try and encourage them to publish in journals. Because when you look at, when you actually research for information of journalism in Uganda, it's so minimal, but it's because people lack the skill to publish in these academic journals. I think it would go a long way if you considered that very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Nora Namugambe, Team Golden Posts, and UCC. So my question, as a Ugandan, it goes, police has refused this one to go this way. But again, police had explanation. So is it explanation? So is it how can I say it? Like the media, are you balancing while reporting? And also, according to what I've heard from the audience, somehow, I see like the media or journalists, maybe there is need to train them that they need to be, how do they call it? Neutral, yeah. They need to be neutral. Because if you come biased and you start reporting, you can't report, even if there is a positive thing, you can't see it. You will see only the negative side. So I wanted to ask that question. I don't know whether you remember it. Is it bad for the media to speak? Maybe you remember it. Let me not take time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nora. We have now to come back here.
Thank you, Mr. Kaija. I am just requesting, for purposes of making the discussion more interactive, I have one question for all the members of the panel, and this is coming from the keynote speech. Has media technology, the technological developments, completely rendered a journalist useless? Because I've seen time and again many people engaging in this conversation trying to portray a picture like social media without a name, that it has completely shifted the ground, that mainstream media, legacy media is irrelevant. And I would like to know from the academy, the practitioners, the trainers, Is this the case? Because when you look elsewhere, I've not seen any social media influencer who has taken over the role of Lucy Doucet or Rachel Kiddy or even Alex Barnes for New York Times. And we keep seeing, for the context of Uganda and Africa generally, there are cases where they are saying media is performing at a low level. But when you look at it globally, you see New York Times performing at a more high level revenue-wise. So I would like to know from you about this. Is that the case? Then lastly, and to give it more context, even when we speak of social media, we still see journalists influencing that space. It's Agatha Tuhaire, Hagai Masiko, it's Kasuku. These are all journalists. Maybe what we are seeing is that the changing technology is basically shifting the space in respect of the medium, but it's not completely taking away the role of journalists. That's my opinion, but I would like to know your views about this as we are looking at the changing media landscape because of technological disruptions.
Thank you very much. Let's start with Alan.
Thank you. I think I'm carrying the unenviable task of being number one, but it is right. Let me just begin with the gentleman who asked us about the president, why we've been asked not to report or why we are not reporting on him. Let me begin with some small context for the benefit of all of us here, because it's not, all of it is public information anyway. If you remember the Kawempe North by-election, at about this time, we asked all our reporters to return to base. By all reporters, I mean all Nation Media Group reporters. We operate a converged newsroom. I am the managing editor for the entire group. And in consultation with myself and my boss, Daniel Kalinachi, we decided that people's husbands, people's sons, people's wives, people's daughters cannot be killed in the campaign trail, and we recall them. So we covered that election otherwise. But in the heat of that election in Parliament, they were passing a parliamentary, or rather a supplementary budget, and it easily went unnoticed. So what we did, it didn't get lost on us, because the Kawempe mess was happening. We covered it, but we still remained rational and said there's something else that has happened in the House. And we looked for that document, the supplementary budget document, and in there were things that we felt were good for accountability journalism. So we dispatched our teams, we gave them the briefing, and then that's when we realized, among many other things, that there were entities that had continued to be given public money. And one of them was the Lubao Hospital, if you remember, the Pineti bottomless pit. The next one was the Nothing is Sweet from Achak, the Achak Sugar Factory. And then the coffee sector, or the coffee outfit that was gulping our taxes. You remember those three headlines. So we had it concerned back to back between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And it is shortly after that that we started feeling what you're talking about. So the first presidential event in Hoima, our journalists were sent away. And not even the presidential communications team was aware. So we took it at that face value. So we waited for the next event, something happened. And as that was happening, the Attorney General wrote to us. I think it was a public document. I think many other media houses reported about it. And he wrote to us about 3 pages. The response that we had as editors, I think, was double that. And we explained ourselves because the Attorney General wanted us to explain how we arrived at reporting at the Lubowa Hospital. Is it true? But you see, in everything that you do, you must get it right. Okay? The reason we still have our lights opened at the NMG is because we get those things right. The moment you don't get it right, they will come and close that door, even with the smallest padlock, and there's nothing we'll do. And our response was very robust because it was based on factuals. Is it true that a supplementary budget was that these outfits have been getting money over time? Yes. Did we document that in the stories? We did. So we gave that response. We've not received another letter until now. And several attempts to cover the presidency. The other public event was the State of the Nation address. We did send the names to Parliament, and when the shortlist came back, all the NMG journalists were missing. So there are things we've done that I cannot talk about, but to respond to you, the other aspect is if someone is not being good to you, do continue loving them. First of all, is we are very rational media house. We take the public good as the first thing because audiences are all that we have. I don't think we have good government will, but we have a very good will. So we do it for our audiences. So whether someone does not want us to be in his rally, in his office, in where, but does the public need that information? Do you become reactionary and say, okay, since you don't want me, I've gone away? Okay? There is a person that loses, which is the audience. That is why even up to today, if you watched our news last night on NTV, we had the president's rally in West Nile. The president's rally in West Nile. In the newspaper, we had this story blocked. No one has ever explained to us. We have written letters. No one has responded to us. We've sent emails. No one has responded to us. So you don't want to act. My advice to you is you become a parent. You become mature. Look at the situation. Do continue work until time X. Then we say, I think at this point, it is now a moment of departure. But as per now, there are elements of intersection. First is that there is an audience that requires that information. Okay? And we are covering these presidential candidates uniformly across our platforms. If you go to our social media handles, if you go to the newspaper, if you go to radio, if you go to TV, we're covering them uniformly. We're not saying this one has not even advertised with us, this one has blocked us. No, because we have the responsibility to inform the public about the president's functions. Okay?
Alan, is it possible to cut
Yes.
short because we are running out of time?
Yeah, I think that was the last bit on that element. Now, there is the question that she asked about taking sides. If, for example, someone tells you that it's raining in Nachivubo, and then another person tells you that there is sunshine, you just go with that face value. There's a difference between reporting and journalism. So you do journalism. Send a bloody fellow there. Go and see for yourself. Is there sunshine? Is there rain? That is journalism. So if police issues a statement and the media house has been there at that event, then I trust my reporter who has been there because I shouldn't trust another entity. The honors of any editor, okay, is to trust their reporter first. And if my reporter misleads me, then I take administrative action, but I must trust them and I must support them because by the time I send you out to the field, it means I trust you and I'll stand by the information that you've come with. But if police is saying otherwise, then I will ask you, can we corroborate? Is it true what the police is saying? And if my journalist says, no, this is what I saw, we stand by that. And that's what we've done all this time. But we are very rational. We don't take sides. we report as is. But also, there's something called diction, choice of words. And we've trained our journalists several times that, for example, if you say someone has been blocked, someone has been denied, someone has been stopped, okay? They may almost mean the same thing, but can be phrased differently. And then that's when now we can understand that police statement. So we do journalism. We don't just take one side. I think that's the last thing. The technological aspect, I think I'll leave it to some my colleagues because I can't be speaking to everything. But journalism and media houses are always relevant. I can go on and on and on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Dr. Tayebwa.
I will speak to the question by Council Sulaiman Kakaire because Sulaiman, again, we had it from Rachel, very deep conversation. Has technology rendered journalism useless? This semester, I'm teaching a master's course in digital journalism and communication. So I can see a couple of the digital journalist masters. Where are you in the room? There were a couple of them, but I see just a few. And it's not the only course that we have, so I want just to highlight our curricula as someone who is on this platform from academia. So this semester, for example, we have digital journalism and communication, which I'm teaching. But we also, another course that I'm teaching at master's level, which is business and financial journalism. So the first one speaks to the technologies, the platforms, and how we interact with those technologies and platforms. And the answer is a very simple one, that no, journalism is not going anywhere. When I was a journalism student, together with Rachel here in journalism class, we had typewriters. That's what we were using. Mass comm students and my sister here. These are the tools we had. When I left journalism school, I joined the New Vision. So in the New Vision, to lay the pages of the newspaper, here we had started the PageMaker, if you remember, Rachel. PageMaker, that's what we started to lay the pages. When I went to New Vision, they were using Quark Express. Then, very shortly after, I left New Vision and joined the Monitor newspaper. And I found they were using Adobe InDesign. So those are tools and platforms. The tools and platforms of the trade will always change, but the principles of the profession will never change. The principles on which the profession lies will never change. And again, I really want to emphasize those principles that Rachel talked about, and the students who are in this room. That is going to be, I think, one of your assignments. That's now a professor speaking. But then there is the other component, Wilson, to that question. And again, to a course that I teach, which is business and economics journalism, which is who owns the media. So the political economy of the media here plays a very big role. And we cannot ignore that. So when you go out there, these principles that we've taught there, they are very important, and you must keep them at the back of your mind. But you are going to interface with these platforms, and you must find a way of appreciating those platforms as tools that you can use to improve your work. And Wilson, in my new role right now, because I'm now responding to Maureen is asking us to revive the journalism review chair, and I will be very happy as managing editor of the director of the publishing unit of the university, to take that journal on, because we have taken on all the journals of the university and revive it. So that's very important. But as we do that, in my new job, I was used, of course, to the traditional editing. But I had to appreciate the tools that we have. Use ChatGPT, use all these Grammarly to make my work very easy. But I cannot submit to Grammarly because, as Rachel has pointed out, this thing sometimes gives you the wrong information. And therefore, what Rachel said, I think, is very important when she said human oversight is absolutely critical. The human in the loop for us is very important to make sure that we do not submit to these tools and these technologies that we have. To that one, but before I leave, I want to acknowledge my professor, Professor Christine Skar-Roger, who taught me at the University of Oslo, and she was my MPhil supervisor of my dissertation, Master of Philosophy in Media Studies, and worked with Christine for very many years. We did so many publications together, including one on the safety and security of journalists. She and myself co-edited a special issue specifically on that topic. So yes, please, I thought acknowledging my former lecturer. Over to you, Wilson.
Thank you very much, William. Rachel?
I had one question directed at me specifically, and one that is a little bit more general that I will speak to quite briefly. So, Ms. Angeda, thank you very much for making that Kalango announcement and recognition of the Uganda National Journalism Awards. And this is now my opportunity to make an announcement that this year we have a special award for emerging student journalist. So you are very, very welcome. It's a neutral process. It's not a popular vote. You submit the work that you have done either as an intern, writing for the university publications, anything like that. And my colleague Flora Aduk is here. Flora, could you wave your hand? And she's our lead on this. If you would like any more information, look for her, but the announcement comes on Monday. This Monday 15th. So follow us online and so on, and apply to showcase your best work. Who knows what may come out of it on a national platform. So the question was about the challenges, most recurring challenges of journalists in relation to tech issues and elections, especially those upcountry. So upcountry journalists are facing the same challenges as journalists across the country, as Wilson very well knows. Issues around high attrition, resources, and financing that then seem to percolate into things around a lack of basic tech literacy or interest in it. So the conversations that NMG Uganda is having with its teams, some of these we cannot have with some of our friends upcountry because there is something that is not quite bridging the divide. And Irene knows about this because she worked outside of Kampala for a long time. It's something that's just not clicking around adaptation and use. There is a bit of fear around it. There are lots of resources. The barriers of entry are high. But as we heard in the morning, barriers of entry have been reduced. So we're still sort of like spreading the word out there, especially because the majority across the country and up countries particularly are digital natives. They are Gen Z, they are Gen Alpha, they are not Gen Xers like us. They're using these new technologies very interestingly for their personal use, but then the link and then my editor, my manager does not allow me, and so that is the challenge we've seen. And this goes back to, you know, even the older technologies. I'm telling you, when we are struggling with the day-to-day. So that's what it is. But also a challenge is around these spaces, but not listen to those spaces, and therefore turning what you are hearing in these spaces into good journalism. This is not a problem for upcountry. It's a problem for all of us, that we are not listening enough, so that listening informs our production on what are people saying beyond the officials. So that's my response to you, Maureen, and congratulations. Good luck on your PhD. We look forward to receiving, to celebrating the doctorate. Mr. Kakaire, it's an existential crisis that we are in that has lasted for several years. I started off as a TV stroke radio journalist. And I recall when my radio station was, that is now owned by these good people here, when it was changed from a heavy entertainment radio station, and that was the way radio was going, we said now radio journalism is going to die. Even quit. I quit my job because I was not ready to do a 5-minute news bulletin. But so we are sort of like stuck in this existential loop as journalists. And the question you're asking on, is journalism becoming useless? Where is this conversation coming from? I'm not entirely sure we can unpack it until we are done with this new loop. Some of you know the song, "Video Killed the Radio Star." That's what they thought. You don't know the song. Young people, you listen to Radio 1. That is where they play our songs of yeah. So once we are done, I feel like once we are done with this cycle, then we will sort of figure out if this existential crisis is real or not. But right now we are still in it, and even I am wondering. I spend a lot of time leveraging my ability to write strong funding proposals. Now I cannot do that anymore. The people are plugging in things, and things seem to go through, and they are getting money. So I think journalists will be rendered useless because of tech, but we may be. So, yeah. That's all I have to say. Sorry, I finished.
Thank you very much, Rachel, for that. Irene, you are the last person.
Thank you. Ms. Ageno, I faced the same challenge when I was researching for my master's. I did digital journalism. And so when I was, pardon? Agena. I was corrected, sorry, Ms. Agena. So yes, we have issues to do with content academic content on media, and especially now if you narrow down to an area that I was interested in, media and gender. By the way, I was very offended by some of the things that were said here, but I remain academic. So we have a challenge. And again, like someone said earlier, we have so many people coming from other professions into journalism. So even the researches that are being done, they would prefer to go back to their primary profession or their primary roles to do the research, as opposed to coming to do the research in journalism. So Alan here will tell you that we did we did our researches, and we've earned the masters. And now I think for Professor here and the rest of professors in the room is to create platforms and opportunities for students to publish their work. Guide them so they're able to publish their work. Because again, like we say in journalism, he who writes a narrative controls the story, okay? Or he who writes the story controls the narrative. So unless, again, as African writers, now I'm being not racial, but I'm just saying, as African writers, we've not published enough for our works to be recognized, and there has to be an effort around that. Let me speak to Moses Muhaire. You see, tech companies celebrate when this social engineering happens. I mean, things are trending, people are talking about this and that, but again, in a sort of like controlled system, such that what you think is trending is actually made possible by around 10, 15 people using hashtags and words that are similar, so they can create a network and fool all of us, the 2.4 million Ugandans who are active social media users, to think that it is the most important thing in this world that is being talked about. But no, it's just a few people who are seated somewhere and they're doing this. So you cannot avoid this entirely, but you can control as you, the user of that platform, and say, I will not be getting notifications on this, that, or the other. So choose what you want to get notifications on. Yeah? And you can just turn your notifications off altogether. Sometimes it's a lot of noise. You sort of like learn to digital detox. How do you detox from all this misinformation, disinformation happening around? And you're asking what we can do. I think the most important thing is to be digitally aware of how this happens, so you're not a conduit. You know what a conduit is? You're the one who is the channel to continue this conversation that actually is not true, is false, or does not add value to society, really. So to, again, encourage also the people in your networks that verification does not end with the fact checkers. Alan will tell you here that we've been training colleagues how to detect misinformation and interests in this. I am concluding. I feel I feel like every time we talk about journalism being erased or all of us disappearing, including Prof here making his lectures irrelevant, we are not encouraging our upcoming journalists. Conversation now should not perhaps be on whether we will die or go away, but how we will adapt and live with this which is before us. I feel it is an enabler for my work. My boss here, Mr. Alan Chekwech, can sit and edit the whole newspaper from this room without having a laptop with him. Now, is that a bad thing? It is not. I remember we were on the upcountry trails, and some of us we were actively doing work while in the car. The driver had to do the driving. The rest of us had to only have access to the internet and continue with work. Myself, I have not been in an office for the last 4 years. I work virtually, remotely. I don't want to say thanks to the beating, but I had to adapt to work differently, and technology became my friend. So if you're intentional about it, learning some of these things, and knowing the safety nets, where can you go, and how do you stay safe in that space where you are? And if you're using tools, for instance, in the media space, which tools are good for your work and which ones are a danger to your work? Like ChatGTP right now is both a danger and a good thing. And you write your content using ChatGTP and submit to me, the editor. I will know. Exactly. Now we have verification tools. I don't even have to pay for that tool anymore. I just go to Zero AI and it tells me, Rachel used 80% AI. Not you, Rachel. I'm just saying, Rachel. So you have to be very careful to know which tools are going to help you advance your career as a journalist and which tools are actually going to set you back in your work as a journalist. Because everybody is making these tools to earn money anyway. They won't stop. Even the ones who are doing the good ones, they're those who are bringing for us bad technology to counter. So it's a business setting. It's a business arena. You just have to choose where to be and choose to succeed. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our good panel, thank you very much. Alan Chekwech, thank you. Dr. William Tayebwa, Irene Abalo, Rachel Mugarura Mutana. Thank you very much, and I ask for a round of applause and the audience. Thank you very much for being around and keeping around until now. As the panel takes a group photo, I'll hand over to Suleiman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wilson and the panel. Please join me, thank the panel and our moderator for the wonderful and insightful session. As we are witnessing the photo moment for the panel, join me appreciate some of these important dignitaries. That is no sense to mean that everyone else in the room is not an important one, but we have individuals representing our different organizations that have rendered support to this convention. ACME, African Center for Media Excellence, we have representatives Rachel and Flora. We have also representatives from Interreligious Council. We have members from the Ministry of Defense. We have also representation from Twaweza East Africa, particularly Martha Chemtai. She was part of us. Uganda Media Women's Association, represented by senior journalist Margaret Sentamu. I saw her during the lunch break. Yes, the breakfast. Then we have lecturers from other universities, particularly Team University. I saw representative. There is Mr. John Tatiamisa from Mundeje University, and even IUIU. I saw some lecturers. There was also a colleague from Uganda Christian University. Then the head of the Department of Literature, Dr. Evelyn Nabulia. She was, yes. Then Uganda Human Rights Commission, it has been with us. It is one of the sponsors. I've seen Christine. Thank you so much. I think those are some of the members whose names have come to me. Thank you so much. We are going through the last session, which is standing between our lunch, and I think we need to do it faster in the next 5 minutes. And we shall be recognizing ceremony. It was supposed to be due at around 9:50, and it was supposed to take 10 minutes, but because it has come late, it should take. Okay. I've been guided. After the award, we shall have a small speech from the Vice Chancellor's office. Dr. Imokola, you need to do this faster. The awards ceremony, it will take at most 10 minutes. It was 20 minutes, you will take 10 minutes.
By the grace of God. Ladies and gentlemen, every year when we hold the annual media convention, we also take it as an opportunity to appreciate our best performing students in collaboration with our partners. And now it is time for us to do that, and I'll request the following people to come forward. Our head of department, Dr. Aisha Nachwala, our keynote speaker, Ms. Rachel Akidi, the representative of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Muyodi. You're most welcome. Thank you for joining us. Please come forward. A representative from Uganda Communications Commission, kindly. Thank you very much. First award is the Cranmer Mogerwa Award, which is presented to the best